and let's go ahead and get into it. So DocuClipper is an amazing OCR tool, and that just means that we're able to read financial documents and extract that data. We're obviously very popular with accountants, bookkeepers, tax professionals, but also we're discovering that we're more and more relevant in the legal field, especially family law, probate law, financial investigation, bankruptcy law. So there are a lot of ways that our tool can be useful. And, you know, the most important thing is that we're able to speed up your workflow. We automate tasks that have typically been taken up by someone doing data entry, and that lifts that talent and that time and allows that person or that team to devote themselves to other tasks and really become superhuman by relying on an AI tool or an OCR tool to simplify a task that is easily automated through DocuClipper. We're very secure. We pride ourselves in bank level encryption, and we're currently going through SOC 2 Type 2 audit through Johansson, and we actually expect that to wrap up truly any moment or any day now. So we're very proud of our security protocols and happy to share those at any time. Let's go ahead and take a look at some reviews. These are just a few reviews. You can see them on Intuit's App Store or on the G2 review site. So these are independent reviews. We don't gather these reviews. People go and leave these reviews through partner institutions. So let's go ahead and get into how our product works and how we partner with a few different financial groups. So first, let's just take a bird's eye view. When you first log into DocuClipper, you'll see your folders, and you'll see a variety of options underneath the folders. These are called projects. So this allows you, based on what your clients need or what you need, you can divide into businesses. I've seen probate go into estates. Loan applicants for lenders are very popular with lenders. And then you could also just add a tax year if you're looking at your own personal tax history. So let's go ahead and add a new project. And we'll just call this one a test project. And as you can see, it does arrange things alphabetically. I have a very robust setup because I want to really mimic what it's like for an accountant or bookkeeper to have all of their individual clients. So once we find the project we want to work on, we click on this blue bar and it's going to give us some options. Today we're going to look at bank statements and invoices and receipts. So let's jump in here. And actually it's super easy to just grab your entire folder and drag and drop. Right now, our tool is scanning each one of these PDFs to find out if they're password protected. If it is password protected, you'll get a little pop-up asking you to enter the password, but these are my own bank statements actually. I've redacted any information that would be sensitive information, but of course there's no password on those for the sake of this demonstration. And that's actually going to be relevant later on because I am going to show some of our fraud detection tools and tools that allow you to see if you're looking at a genuine, unaltered bank statement, because these bank statements that I'm parsing literally right now have been edited somewhat. So I'm going to show you how DocuClipper can detect even that. So that's useful for folks who depend on their clients to submit accurate bank statements. All right, so we've parsed through about 12 bank statements, and as you can see, they're all reconciled. The key points that you want to pay attention to, and let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit so you can see this. So the key points to know that your bank statement has accurately been extracted, you're going to look at start balance, credits, debits, and balance. So if we look in here, we can see 3 credits, 48 debits. That matches. Previous balance and ending balance match. So that is letting us know right there that this was extracted. Now, if you want to go look at the individual extracted data pane and you want to scroll over so you can see the payee, description, and amount, you certainly can. And you're going to find that these transactions that have been extracted from the document match exactly. Now, every once in a while, you may have to make an edit here or there. These little pencil icons allow you to do that. Sometimes, depending on formatting, I'll see like a credit entered as a debit or vice versa. So you might just have to enter or exclude a negative sign. So little edits like that are sometimes necessary. But generally, we want this to be 100% accurate out of the box because we have been working to gather the metadata from 90% or better of the banks in the United States, and even in the United Kingdom, Australia, Ireland, South Africa. So most English-speaking countries are supported by DocuClipper, and we're expanding every day. Even Cadence Bank, which is a small regional bank, and we're working to pick up those little credit unions as well. So most folks, when they use DocuClipper, they do exactly what I've done. They extract data from some bank statements, and they go and hit this button right here. And this allows you to export that data into your desired file format. The most common is Excel, but we actually also integrate with Intuit QuickBooks, which is why you're able to review us on the Intuit store, because we are an Intuit partner. And that's part of our security setup as well. And then there are a variety of other formats. We've also been developing options for IIF. This is relevant for any accountants or bookkeepers who are locked in to the QuickBooks desktop system. And if that's the case, we're developing more self-service tools and self-service videos to make that easier, since it can be a little more difficult to use this tool. So we're trying to support that. So for today, I'm just going to click on Excel. Now, there are different loadouts you can create. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but just to give you an idea, you are able to go in and configure a unique output if you need to do that. Let's say you don't want all of the columns. Maybe you would just want date, description, and amount. You want to simplify some things. You could do that. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to show you everything we can extract. So let's go ahead and open this up. Alrighty, so you will see all the months of bank statements that we pulled. So all of those bank statements are now on one Excel document. And you can see the vendors, you can see the amounts, and then now we're going to enrich that data. And we do that by going to the Categorize section here. So DocuClipper automatically gives you a category group that's a default category group. And this is what those categories look like. And in addition to the keywords that I've placed in here, and you can edit keywords by hitting this blue pencil, so you can include or exclude keywords, and those keywords usually connect to a vendor, so like Planet Fitness, Gold's Gym. These are related to fitness. So you can edit those and make those more precise, but we also have auto detection for big nationwide vendors like Amazon, McDonald's, Starbucks. But we find that spending tends to be very regional. And if you're working with a specific client that maybe has specific business needs, you're probably going to need to create your own categories and your own keywords. Now you can save that, and you can even have multiple category group setups for your multiple clients. And then you just have to set those things up once, and you can use them over and over again. So I've mentioned QuickBooks Desktop before. What's relevant with QuickBooks Desktop is that categories have to be very specific in QuickBooks Desktop. So that's why I made a custom category loadout that would be relevant to QuickBooks Desktop specifically, because everything has to match, the vendors have to match, everything must match perfectly if you're integrating with that platform. So I'm going to go ahead and select this category group, and we're going to categorize all accounts. So within a click, you're going to see pretty much all of this spending flow into categories. So if we scroll down, we can see that the keywords I set up are causing these transactions to flow into specific category groups. Now, as you're scrolling through, you might find some outliers, like, and this is the thing about bank statements, sometimes they'll shorten certain keywords and then it doesn't fall inside of the category. So you go over here to create a rule to capture that. So I will usually cut off the extra part, because again, with bank statements, certain things can get cut off. So I'm going to shorten that to the abbreviation for Amazon. I'm going to put that in the retail category and create that rule. Now it doesn't automate it immediately. If I went up and categorized again, it would. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to show you how to make a manual edit. So you would just go click that, and now that's manually edited. So this is kind of how you can teach that. So this is Microsoft, but it didn't spell out Microsoft all the way. So we go ahead and we create a rule for that. And you're kind of getting, you know, an idea of how you would over time make your keywords and your categories more specific. There we go. All right, so pretty much everything is categorized at this point. So this is going to allow us to download this more enriched categorized data. So let's open this up so I can show you guys the difference. So we still have all the information we had before, and it's, you know, still months of data, but now we have the category and the category keyword that identified that vendor. So this is useful not just for QuickBooks Desktop, this is useful for tracking all kinds of spending. It's relevant for different verticals, whether you're a bookkeeper, a forensic investigator. The categorization tool has been useful for a lot of folks. All right, so we've categorized. The next step beyond that, and this may or may not be useful to you, but I just kind of want to show you these extra tools just in case. These are visualization tools. So this allows you to see flow of funds, and then this allows you to see cash flow analysis. And so, you know, any big valleys like this, any big spikes, that might tell you something about your client or about your case, and it might be relevant. And we're also working on additional visualization tools. Right now, this is based on end and start balances, but we're actually working on some visualization tools that will focus on deposits and withdrawals as well. Obviously, you'll see a lot more activity on that type of visualization. And then we get into fraud detection. So I mentioned before that I removed sensitive information. So this is a fake account number, and then my name and address should be right here on the bank statement. And we know that because we've received the metadata and the template from Cadence Bank that lets us know what a bank statement should look like from Cadence Bank. So now we have this 80% fraud score saying this document doesn't match the authentic fingerprints that we know should be in this bank statement. So even though I haven't edited any transactions, it's not actually fraud. We do know that something has been edited here. So if you're a forensic investigator, this is the point where you would go back to your client and ask for a sealed envelope from the bank containing the bank statement, and then you could just run that through DocuClipper all over again. Just want to go over a couple more things before I open up for questions. So I talked a little bit about integration, and we do integrate with QuickBooks. So I showed you before how you can download data and export it into a specific file format. If you want to skip that step, you could just connect your QuickBooks online account, and then this data is going to automatically flow into that. You also have the option connect your Google account. And this is useful if maybe you work with a team of bookkeepers and you share like a Google Workspace. This would take that data and immediately put it into the shared workspace so that everyone can have access to it. And then on the topic of teams, you go over here to manage users and teams. So you would simply go to add a new user, put in their information. They're going to receive an email, accept that email to make the account, and then they'll appear here in your team and you can control how much access they have. Really quick, go into one more key functionality that might be useful for some folks who are attending, and that is invoices and receipts. So if anybody's doing accounts payable, anything relevant to that, and actually let's pull up, and here are some invoices. So let's drag an invoice in here. Now, this might be relevant to how you're tracking spending, or this might be relevant to expenses. So we click on View Invoice. This is a pretty simple invoice, but you can see that we've extracted pretty much all the data that you could want to extract from the invoice. And when we download this data, we'll probably exclude some of it because this is probably more than what would be relevant for most folks. You can also go to Edit Rules for Payables. This means that, say if this were a really long receipt or a really long invoice, maybe a remittance form. There are a lot of different ways that this could be formatted. Let's say for some reason DocuClipper doesn't pick up something. You would be able to go down to Edit Rules for Payables and add a new rule. You could look at the description or the vendor. You could choose to include or exclude and then put in that keyword, and then that category would show up in a new section, and that would be a new column in your Excel sheet. So then there are approval rules. This is for accounts payable. This is specifically if someone needs to approve receipts, and we are working on a tool that would integrate this better with ERP systems. Since some folks, they want to do the approval process inside of DocuClipper, some folks want to do it inside of their native ERP system like SAP, some folks use Microsoft. Then we can go to download the invoice or receipt. And this is where configurations are actually really important, because as you can see here, there's way too much data that has been extracted. And I say too much, we want to extract everything because that's our job, but it may not be relevant to you. So let's go ahead and get rid of, we probably want quality, we want description, we want the vendor, we want the total, but we may not want the category. We may not want a line item description, that might take up too much space. A service description might take up too much space. So let's go ahead and close that. And then we would export through configuration 5, which is what we just made. And now all the relevant data is seen here. So again, this is just one receipt. If you had processed several receipts, you would see all of those falling under these unique categories. And the next step that I recommend for anyone who has viewed this demo is to go ahead and sign up with a DocuClipper free trial. That will allow you to create your account and start testing your documents, whether those are bank statements, those might be invoices, receipts, remittance forms. We're also able to extract data from IRS tax forms. So, all of those things are supported through DocuClipper. Feel free to come in, see how those things are processed. I think you'll be very impressed with it. And of course, thank you so much for attending this webinar. I hope you guys have a great day.